Well, hello and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. I'm joined by Ben Habib. Ben, we were talking about your ongoing feud, if you like, with Nigel Farage. And very recently, he was talking about a donation from Elon Musk, which he claims he turned down as evidence that he's not racist. What's the truth?
So this was in defending himself against. By the way, I don't have a feud with Nigel Farage. I've just launched a political party called Advance because I don't think reform is going to deliver on the hopes and aspirations of the British people. I think Farage will fail. Reform will fail because they haven't got what it takes. So it's not a feud; it's just a political disagreement. But so Farage, in response to having been accused of being a racist, I think offered up a number of defenses. One of which was that he'd done more to banish the far right in British politics than any other individual. And he talked about how he'd shut down the BNP and how he had declined a donation from Elon Musk because Elon Musk had linked it to Tommy Robinson. That donation was linked to Farage supporting Tommy Robinson. And I just know for a fact, and I'm not going to disclose my sources, I know for a fact that Elon Musk never made an offer of money to Farage. But Farage, having blown the trumpet incessantly at the end of 2024, saying, giving every indication that Elon Musk was going to donate to him, $100 million was the figure bandied about, I think needed a convenient uh, escalator to get off of that claim when Musk didn't offer him any money. And so he's come up with this fabrication in his own imagination that he was offered money but turned it down because Musk had linked it to Tommy Robinson. He's tried to make a virtue out of rejecting Musk's money when actually Musk never offered any money. And in the process, effectively has vilified, yet again, Tommy Robinson, but also vilified Musk because he's indicated that Musk had strings attached to his offer, and that Musk in some way is supporting far right ideologies. So, in one throwaway comment, which, as I say, is Farage's figment of his imagination, he's thrown Musk under a bus. He's thrown Tommy Robinson under a bus. Not for the first time, and he has lied about the fact that a money offer was made.
And also the point about it, it was in defence or in he offered this as evidence that he's not a racist, and the implication there is that both Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk might be, because he says he's turned down his money suggested a donation from them. What's your response to that?
Well, as I said, I think it's wrong. Farage should know better because he's been on the receiving end of these kinds of accusations for decades, and he should know that he shouldn't himself be seeking to stand on their heads as they suffer in order to promote his own interests, particularly on the racism point. It's just wrong of Farage. But I'd say quickly on Farage, I don't believe Farage is a racist. I think Farage is a bully. And if he said contemptible things to his colleagues at school, it was because he was just latching on to whatever he could to bully them. That's my own interpretation of what might have happened in his school days. And I went to a boarding school. I know the kind of bullying that takes place. And the typical school bully doesn't just identify ethnicity as an issue or religious beliefs. If you have a lisp or a limp or any other kind of issue, the bully's going to find it and he's going to hammer it. It's bully behavior.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, you say that Nigel's not a racist. Do you believe that either Elon or Tommy Robinson are racists?
No, I don't. I don't. Certainly not. You know, people have got to stop vilifying others with whom they have disagreements by throwing about these stupid accusations. Tommy Robinson clearly has serious issues with Islam. Clearly, he's got very serious issues, understandably, with rape gangs, etc. But he's not a racist. He had me on his platform on the 13th of September. Some of his closest associates, who I think you know better than I do, are also from ethnic minorities. He's not a racist.
Yeah, well, Wendell is one of the key people at Urban Scoop. He's black and a reporter, and so on and so forth. The other point that you make is that Musk not only never offered Farage a donation, because if Farage had been offered a donation, he would have taken it. Why do you say that?
Well, because there's ample evidence of Farage taking money wherever he can get it. I mean, you look at his parliamentary register, he takes money from all sorts of organizations, including an organization, by the way, that promotes rich people across the globe, telling them which countries to go to where they can avoid paying tax. Farage is getting money from them. But I think the best example is a chap called Christopher Harborne. And I'm going to be as brief as I can. Christopher Harborne put £14 million behind the Brexit Party. And I got to know a bit of Christopher Harborne in 2019. And Christopher Harborne, like me and like Farage, understood that the withdrawal agreement being put forward by Boris Johnson was not Brexit, that it would not deliver the United Kingdom out of the EU. It was just another form of relationship with the EU. Harborne knew it, Farage knew it. Next thing we know, Farage has stood down 317 candidates and against the Tories, giving Boris Johnson a clear run into office to deliver the withdrawal agreement, which we all knew was not Brexit. And the justification for that was that if he didn't do it, we'd get a Jeremy Corbyn government, a second referendum, and Brexit may be completely defeated. But then when you wind the clock forward 3 years from 2019, you find that the man that Harborne and Farage both detested because he screwed up Brexit got £1 million from Christopher Harborne. Boris Johnson got £1 million from Christopher Harborne in November 2022. And the balloon should go up for any sane minded individual at that point. If Farage didn't know that Christopher Harborne wasn't the kind of donor he should be taking money from, no sensible person, in my mind, would give Boris Johnson £1 million after the hash Boris Johnson made of Brexit. If Farage uh, couldn't come to terms with that in 2022, then I think he's compromised in his principles. And Farage did not come to terms with that in 2022 because Farage still takes money from Christopher Harborne. Christopher Harborne was donating money to Farage, money to Boris Johnson, still donating money to Farage. And Farage should actually reject Christopher Harborne's money because Christopher Harborne has allied himself to Boris Johnson, who Farage himself denounces in public. And it may surprise you to know, or maybe it won't surprise you to know, that when Richard Tice, who was leader at the time, invited me to join Reform, I declined in part because of Christopher Harborne's donation of £1 million to Johnson. And eventually I joined the party under pressure. But I said to Richard Tice, if I get the slightest whiff of Harborne being involved in reform, I will be off. And I think that's part of the heart of the problem, uh, or at least with Farage. Farage's dislike of me, I think, comes from the fact that I see the uh, issues between himself, Christopher Harborne, and Boris Johnson. I see through it, and he knows that I know that he's taken money from someone from whom he shouldn't have taken money, and that's why I say that if Musk had offered money to Farage, he would have taken it. The fact he took Christopher Harborne's money after 2022 informs me he would have taken Musk's money.
And the reason that you're so opposed to Christopher Harborne's money, I mean, you mentioned that he gave 1 million to Boris. Are there any other reasons?
Yeah, so Christopher Harborne lives in Thailand. He has a different name. There have been lots of questions raised about Christopher Harborne. But one really pertinent question that's been raised was raised by the FT, I think, in November 2024. It accused Christopher Harborne of having tried to conceal his identity when donating money to the Brexit Party. Now, if you conceal your identity when you make a donation to a political party, you're actually breaking the law. It's a criminal act. So the FT had accused Harborne of trying to break electoral law in the United Kingdom. Harborne did not sue the FT. And I know the FT had concrete evidence for its accusation. And the fact that Harborne didn't sue them reconfirms to me that the FT had real concrete evidence against Harborne. And again, Farage is taking money from someone who would appear to have tried to break electoral law. Farage shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
And obviously, as you know, Harborne's not on the program today to refute that, and he would obviously be entitled to a right to reply. And any supporting evidence would come out in those sort of stages. Looking at that sort of side, then you've also got other run-ins with Farage because effectively about his influence on GB News and the appearances for both yourself and Rupert have dried up. In fact, Rupert posted very recently when Christopher Hope was saying that GB News is being not allowed to ask questions in press conferences, and also with Rachel Reeves fairly recently, and also they're being turned down certain invitations, or if you like, to party conferences. And the latest thing with Jeremy Corbyn. What's the latest with GB News?
So GB News has undoubtedly cancelled me, but not just me, they've cancelled everyone in a senior position at Advance. They've had on occasion members of our senior team, when they've discovered that they're actually part of Advance, they've never gone back on again. Since the 30th of June, when I launched the party, and I did it on your show the morning of the 30th of June, Martin Daubney invited me on to GB News that afternoon and to talk about Advanced UK, and I did. Martin's a great guy. But by the way, all the presenters on GB News are great people, with perhaps one or two exceptions. And I went on with Martin Daubney, discussed Advance, and that was the last time I was on. And no senior members of Advance are on. GB News has gone from being the purveyor of news and in a balanced way, in the way that it said it would act, and that no one would be cancelled. It's gone from that to actually being a political activist for Reform UK. They do not want Reform UK and Farage challenged. And they know that I'm capable of challenging Farage, not just capable of challenging him. I think they know I would beat him in a debate. And what I would say on this program, and please do send this to GB News, Andrew, clip this and send it to GB News. What have you got to fear from me having a debate with Farage? Let's have a debate with Farage. Get Farage on with me. 1 hour debate, Farage and me on the State of the Union. Let's do it.
Absolutely, and that would be compulsive viewing for both of you. And Nigel likes a good debate, and as you know, I've been on the channel since the very first year on GB News on virtually every program, and similarly with Talk TV. I've seen Rupert on Talk TV. What's the latest with you and them?
But with Talk TV, it's a slightly different story. The last time I was on with them was beginning of August. So they did have me on for a bit after I launched Advance. But then I got a text from a senior member of Reform who's also a presenter on Talk, and I won't mention their name, um, completely out of the blue in September, saying that I'd been cancelled by Talk because Talk are fed up with the way that I've challenged Farage, and that this particular presenter would do everything in their power to make sure that I failed in my endeavour with Advance. Um, so it would seem that Talk has followed GB News into cancelling anyone from Advance. I know Howard Cox has been on a couple of times, but I think he goes on with his Fair Fuel cap on. You know, he runs this
Yes.
campaigning group for Fair Fuel, and so he's gone on with his Fair Fuel cap on. But again, no senior members of Advance. We're the seventh largest political party in the United Kingdom, and we've done that in a matter of months. We're about to get our electoral commission registration. We are going to be fighting the political landscape. At some point, by the way, these two channels are going to have to get us on because otherwise will be in gross dereliction of duty.
Yeah, and as I always say, George or not war, war. The best way of looking at the
Yeah.
issues is by discussing them. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, but it's not just the media who are giving you a hard time and cancelling you, or maybe they let them respond to that accordingly. But you've also had problems getting venues. You had that problem up in the northeast with the hotel cancelling at the last moment. You had a number of problems recently with Wales. Talk to me about that, including some of the threats you received.
So we had two setbacks with Wales. The first event was due to be held on the 1st of November, and we cancelled that because someone had got hold of the location of the venue. And th- sorry, I have to correct myself. The first event was cancelled because the venue cancelled on us on the 1st of November. Then we rescheduled for the 29th of November, and someone managed to get hold of the venue's location and publicize it on social media. And at the same time as publicizing it, someone else or the same people had put out images of two senior Welsh members of Advance wearing Nazi uniforms, um, weaponizing our event against us. And it's very dangerous because apart from getting the event cancelled, they actually made targets of members of Advance, which is, very, very wrong, I think, to any sane-minded individual's way of thinking. And so we had to cancel the second event. Eventually, the event took place, but in a private premises with, a sympathetic individual who hosted it. But it was a smaller crowd. It wasn't officially an Advance UK event. Um, it's a great shame. We are up against it. The establishment fears us. People on our own side of the debate fear us because they know that we are serious, principled, and capable people. But we will continue swinging the bat, Andrew. No one's going to shut us down.
Yeah. One of the things we touched on in response, a lot of people who say the same thing every time you come on. They say, when are you going to get together with Rupert? Rupert is now reposting your various messages on X, including the bits that you've just, the point that you just made about GB News. What's the latest with you and Rupert?
So Rupert and I have always been on good terms. We see the way to restore the United Kingdom in slightly different ways. I want to do it through a party. He's doing it through a movement. Um, but remember, Rupert, the Advance UK was conceived with Rupert's agreement, and with the understanding that Rupert would be leader. Rupert decided during the course of events that he wanted to do his movement, not be in a political party. That's his prerogative. But I am firmly of the view that we need a new political party in this country, and I will continue to, uh, lead Advance UK and do the best I can for it. But of course, Rupert is welcome at any time. It's up to him, obviously.
Yeah, and last time we spoke, you said you hadn't spoken to him for a little while. I understand you in the last few hours you've had a conversation.
We've exchanged texts, yeah.
So is that, are we going to hear some positive news soon, do you think?
Well, we're mates, when we're not going to throw each other under the bus. We're on the same side. We're firmly on the same side. And let's just see how events unfold. At some point, I think Rupert has to come to the recognition that it's a political party that gives change. A movement doesn't do it.
Yeah. I want to give, as we mentioned about some of the posts on X, Ben Leo, a presenter on GB News, been there for some time. He says that it did invite Rupert on. What do you know about that?
The only thing I know is that that he did invite. I think he said he'd invited Rupert on three times, and according to Rupert, he was only ever invited on once, and it was at 12:30 a.m. A completely horrendous hour to be invited on to a news show, and Rupert declined. But being invited on once in 4 months or 6 months or whatever it's been, 6 months now, actually, probably once at midnight does not constitute not banned. They've cancelled Rupert, they've cancelled me, they've cancelled Advance. They're circling the wagons around Farage. Farage is prickly. He's not prepared to have a debate. And I'll just reiterate to the editors at GB News, you want something that's going to get a lot of views? Get Farage on for 1 hour debate with me over the State of the Union. Get that message back to them. Andrew, I bet they decline or they don't respond.
There you go. Well, there's a challenge. We know a lot of the editorial people there. Take Ben up on his challenge. That's got to be
Yeah.
worthwhile. I want to run through just some of your recent posts, if I may get your quick headlines on those. You had a Hilary Shan on why we support a united Ireland. One thing your party will never do is prop up the British state. You responded, if you do not believe in the United Kingdom, for goodness sake, leave the country, go to the Republic of Ireland.
I mean, this lady was advocating for the unification of Northern Ireland with Ireland. She stands for, this new Jeremy Corbyn party. I mean, for a British politician to get on the airwaves and say she stands for part of the United Kingdom to be given away to a foreign power, frankly, in my mind, disqualifies her from being capable of being on the political landscape. She's advocating the end of the United Kingdom. It is treasonous, isn't it? Andrew? I
Oh no,
can't think of a.
absolutely. You've got to
Yeah,
turn around. It's very simple. The United Kingdom includes Northern Ireland.
yeah, and sod off if you don't like it.
There you go. Very clear on that. Talk to me about Peter Whittle.
Oh, well, it's very, very sad. I'm so sad about Peter dying. And it came out of the blue. I think he discovered he had cancer just 5 or 6 months ago. He was due to get married. The marriage plans had to be changed. And he deteriorated very, very quickly. Peter, like me, loved this country, believed in this country, believed in its heritage, its culture, all the great things it's done, its continued, the potential for its continued great contribution to the world. And it's just that, and he did it very peacefully. He did it in a very considered man. He didn't rant. He was just a good guy, and it's just so sad to lose him. I put on my feed, I love Peter, and I came to love him as a brother. He was a really, really good guy, and we're much worse off for his loss, for
Yeah,
losing
I
him.
no, absolutely. And Tom Stoppard is also very different. I don't know if you obviously you know his work and so on and so forth. Do you have any? He died at age 88 in the last few hours. It's
Yeah,
just been announced.
very sad. Yeah, I thought he'd already passed, so it was surprising to me that he'd passed again, but I didn't know him, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. David Starkey has just said what the entire political class is too scared to admit. In an extraordinary conversation with Ben Habib, Dr. Starkey laid out the real crisis gripping Britain, not policy, not polling, but the loss of the nation itself.
I think that's right. That is where we're at the moment. If you don't have borders, the most obvious example of this, but they're there's a whole, there's a manifold examples I can give. But, if you don't have borders, which is perhaps the most obvious example, you can't be a country, can you? If you don't enforce your borders, you can't be a country. We're
No,
not
no,
a country.
absolutely. You're very clear on that. And finally, Ben, just give us an update on where you are with Advance UK. Has the electoral register, have you now been officially recognised?
We're very, 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 very close
What does that
to
mean?
being registered. Well, I have an exchange of emails with the commission in which they've confirmed they're satisfied with everything we've done, and they're going to make a decision in the next few days.
Okay, so next time on, we're going to have that. Policies in the college, how far advanced is that?
So we started, believe it or not, with our immigration policy. That's the first one that we're putting, forming. Um, that should be ready in the next few weeks. There's been healthy debate, I can tell you. You would have thought it's something we could trot out overnight, but there's been healthy debate internally about what we need to do and how we need to do it, and the mechanism by which we do it, so the country goes forward in a capable and secure way, and so on, and that we get the end result that we want. So that's happening. There is a committee now formed for our energy policy, which will, at the heart of it, obviously, I think, no doubt, include ditching net zero, but there'll be a lot more to the energy policy than just ditching net zero. And then we've got other policies coming up, on the back of that, defense and so on. Education's critical.
More and more names are coming out in support of you at the moment. How many members do you have?
Just over 37,000. So we got 37,500 or something. The membership isn't growing as rapidly as it was when everyone was focused on it. But I think once we've got our registration, we've already got enough to fight a general election, by the way. Reform fought the 2024 general election with 30,000 members. But once we've got our electoral commission registration, I think we're going to see quite a dramatic change. We're going to step up a gear or two.
Okay. One of the names that had recently appeared is Katie Wessel, who was people remember from X Factor, and she's been very public about her criticism of Simon Cowell's organisation and how there was not really being looked after. Liam Payne, who tragically died.
Right, yeah.
What do you know about Katie and her battles?
I don't know a lot about that particular battle. It's not on party lines. It's a personal issue. And I knew when she joined the party that she had problems with Simon Cowell, etc. already. But I'm not in that world. And I have to say it's beyond my pay grade.
Yeah,
It-
and well, maybe
Talking
she can
about
come on the
Simon
show and
Cowell.
we can talk to
Yeah.
Simon about that as well, because that's one of the things that television companies have been looking at more and more. People who become part of these, well, reality shows in a way, that there is a duty of care to them, isn't there?
Well, there should be, absolutely. And I think these reality shows, they're pretty, I mean, they're repugnant in my mind because they're revealing individuals to an extent that I don't think any individual should be revealed in public. The people should have some modesty and some privacy, and I would never talk about my private life in public and reveal. I would never have cameras following me around 24/7. I mean,
Well, they do
God,
now,
I
don't
can't
they,
think of
Ben?
any.
Just about.
I No, 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 they don't. And I can't think of anything worse than someone filming me in my private moments. It must be so dull, apart from anything else for other people to watch. Sitting on my sofa having a gin and tonic. I mean,
Uh,
how
th-
boring is that?
there you go. There you go. Mike Graham is about to launch his new independent show tomorrow. Mike was released from, let me put it that way, from Talk TV over this post, which he said he didn't make. What's your take on the actions of Talk TV?
Well, if I had been talk, I wouldn't have investigated the matter. I would have taken Mike Graham's protestations at face value, his defense at face value, and said, well, fine. We know and trust you. You say you didn't post it. It's impossible to prove it one way or the other. We'll keep you on. But
Yeah.
instead, they seemed almost like they wanted to get rid of him. They just went after him, didn't they?
It is interesting. What I was with Mike at the Battle of Ideas, literally hours before the photo was taken or and released on social media. He absolutely denies that it was him and said it was somebody hacked it. But I was with him during that time. He was with Kevin O'Sullivan. I had the joy of being on their programs regularly as well. He was by far their most popular, and ratings have reflected that. It is interesting, isn't it, with these independent broadcasters, how they handle these matters. I've got a lot of time for the management in both organisations, but generally they have to ensure these matters are discussed in public, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, they've got to come out in public. You can't have these discussions behind closed doors. Um, and but as I say, they made a problem out of it. They should have not let the problem become a problem.
Yeah, interesting. And are you close to Mike? Would you go on his show?
I'd love to go on his show. I love Mike. We get on incredibly well. Yeah, or we did until Talk cancelled me.
There you go. You could be one of as an invitation to Mike as well. The other
Yeah.
independent broadcaster whose show I will be on tomorrow is Dan Wootton, who had his own problem with a very famous restaurant, Joe Allen's. I've been there. I'm sure you have many times as well. But he was contacted by them asking
Yeah.
him to remove the tag of Joe Allen's on a particular post that he did because some of the comments about calling him racist rats, and he was with Alison Pearson and I think also Lucy Connolly as well. He was asked to remove it. He published that particular recording. What's your take on that?
Well, so I haven't eaten at this establishment, by the way.
I'll,
But
I'll take you there, or maybe
yeah,
not.
okay. No, thank you. I look forward to that. It's so as a private establishment, they clearly have the right to decide, who comes into their restaurant, who goes, and who puts tags up about them and whatnot. I think it was incredibly stupid of them if they wanted it taken down to have gone into such detail with Dan. They should have just called him up and said, "Look, Dan, we're a private establishment. We don't want to be linked to anything political or podcast. Do you mind just taking it down?" And that would have been the end of it. Dan would have just taken it down. But instead, they went on effectively to denounce Dan and to give him their own view of life and their other customers' view of life and so on, or really their customers' view of life. And they didn't need to do that, and they shouldn't have bent. And having revealed all of that, they shouldn't have bent to it, in my mind. But they are a private establishment. They've got to put their profits first and foremost. They're not a news channel like GB News that might have some obligation to show all sides of the debate. So yeah, it's just a very sad reflection on where we are as a country, isn't it?
Yeah.
That where even where you get to eat,
Well,
your
I think, well,
political
there's
views.
two things there. One, absolutely, they can decide who their customers are. I'm not quite sure they can tell somebody to remove a tag afterwards just because of the backlash. I think once you've had a customer and people post, look, there's a tag, this is where I had it, that's a bit more difficult. But it does also, it reminds us of when Tommy Robinson was thrown out
Yeah.
of that particular restaurant. They should name the steak the Tommy Hawk, but work on that sort of basis. What was your view on that?
Well, again, it's a private establishment, isn't it? So it becomes very challenging, I think, to say a private establishment has to obey certain higher rules. But it is very disturbing when your political views, even though that they're expressed peaceably and through legal channels and everything else, you're not inciting violence, etc., and so on. It's very, very sad that the country's got to a point where you can't just go out and have a meal. I mean, I'm waiting for some restaurant to throw me out. That hasn't happened yet.
Well, you've had, as I say, some of the venues that you
Cancelled.
try to
Yeah.
have your thing as have refused you. So that's happening. Do you think if they understood you a bit more, if they understood what Advance UK is all about, and that it's not a far right racist organization, do you think you might get a better reception?
I'm sure. Of course. Of course. But there are forces on the far left who want to call us far right because it justifies them directing ire and, potentially physical violence against us. But there are also people on our side of the debate who want to see us shut down because it gives them a clear run at the electorate without wishing to mention names.
Yeah, well, we'll continue to make sure that you have a platform so people can at least understand what your true views are. They may not agree to it or with
Yeah.
those views, but at least they will get to hear them. Finally, Ben, and this genuinely is finally, then I'll let you get on with your Sunday. What can we expect over the next few days from Advance UK?
So we're going to get our electoral commission registration quite soon. You're going to start seeing policies coming out from us. We're establishing our regional network. That's critical for us, particularly given the troubles we've got with GB News and so on. Um, I think we found a national director, and then under the national director, there will be regional officers who will be responsible for the 12 regions of the United Kingdom, and then each of them will then appoint their own chairman of branches and so on. And and then we're off. Then we're off, and we get down to the serious business of winning hearts and minds across the country, with or without the support of GB News and Talk.
Okay, fantastic. And when will the director be announced?
I only interviewed him on Friday. Other people have interviewed him. He got the thumbs up from everyone, and so I hope in the next few days we'll announce him.
Okay, we'll have him here. We like to break things on the Andrew Eborn
Yeah,
show. Maybe
he's
he
a
can
very
come
good
along and
guy.
say something.
He's a great guy. Really, I was so impressed with in my conversation with him.
Fantastic. Ben Habib, as always, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me on.
Take care.